Sup y'all, it's AngeloTangelo. Welcome back to another Sims 2 challenge. Today we'll be woohooing with everyone in Pleasantview, without getting caught. I call this the Stealth Cheater Challenge. Simply put, we're visiting 10 different households in Pleasantview, and woohooing with all adult and elder Sims. Since I recorded this video on my desktop, there were a lot of changes I had previously made to the neighborhood that may seem strange from the default game version. You could thank my past self for messing with cheats and whatnot. That aside, let's jump in. So before we start, we've got to beef up the neighborhood with a few more families. You'll probably notice the Caliente family is a bit broken. I'm sorry, I was younger then. Some of these families were custom created, like the Marshall family. We'll see them a bit later. So I want to apologize in advance if any of these families were ruined in the process of making this video, like the Broke family. You could see what happened with Bo in Season 1, Episode 4 of my Sims 2 Let's Play series. This is going to be our sim for the challenge. Meet Sleazeball Paul. Jones. I think this accurately depicts the common fuckboy, so these are the traits I chose. Yes, we're starting off easy with the Harlow family, an EA-made sim from the Sims life stories that someone recreated for The Sims 2. So let's merge the two households and hope this doesn't go horribly wrong. I started out easy with a simple chat to break the ice, and it seemed to work out okay. Meet our paperboy, Child Derek. I already began showing signs of attraction towards Riley and then had a few not-so-good conversations with her, which didn't help my progression. So I decided to manipulate her through chemistry to make myself more irresistible. Like the most manly man ever, I approached her with confidence and then lured her in with the charm.
Hey, baby.
It seemed to work exponentially well. I followed with a flirty suggestion, which, yes, also proved successful. Eventually, it led to the inevitable crush and first kiss. But like in reality, in The Sims 2, you're bound to eventually make some mistakes that may halt the greater goal from being achieved. But I was determined, so we began dating and dancing on her back porch. I lowered my hands to her butt because it's a good butt. It wasn't until I tried to kiss her during the dance that I had realized I had taken things a little too far. So I went back in for the butt rubs, but this time was not so successful. We may have lost some points in relationship, but thank Mr. Right that we gained some music enthusiasm. We spent the remainder of the date making out and kissing on the bed. Multiple times. Until we became best friends. The date was nearing the end, so I tried to keep it rolling by achieving some wants. The date was too close to ending for there to be time to woohoo, and we were too tired anyway. Riley prepared for bed as there were just seconds left of the date. The date had ended, and she was satisfied with where we had left it. We quickly picked back up by making out at 3 a.m. Then she began falling for me. It was the time, our first woohoo of the challenge. Little did she know that there would be over a dozen others yet to come, but she will always be the first. I scouted out for the newspaper to find a new household to merge with. In the meantime, I was already reflecting on my first time with Riley. It would stick with me forever. The taxi arrived, and it was time for me to leave. My absence had awoken Riley from her slumber as I approached my transport. The sun rose as she chased me out the door to say goodbye, but walked back inside when I did not retort. On to the next. Don't you look at me! On to something more challenging. I infected the Jefferson family with my douchiness. We began at 8 in the morning. Barbara was my first target, so I approached her with a simple chit-chat. It didn't go over too well, as she didn't seem to like me very much, and our chemistry was poor. I then decided maybe the father would be an easier target, so we hung out on the front lawn, all whilst the daughter struggled to build a relationship with the oven. I then presumed to gossip about his wife and followed with a high five, which he also seemed to enjoy. It was time to find out what Barbara liked so I could use the chemistry to my advantage. Using my formal wear, I gossiped about her son, as her daughter cheered in approval. I manly walked into a secluded room and called over Barbara for a kiss. She accepted and we quickly became crushes. Riley had seemed to have tracked me down and wanted answers regarding my hitting and quitting. No. In buy mode, I decided— Don't you look at me! I bought a stereo to wake the kids up so I could have the double bed all to myself. Another exchange of affection was partially successful with Barbara. She seemed to enjoy the pecking and charming. not so much the kissing of her hand. Tickling was another successful interaction. Although her and I were on good terms, a 33 was still not high enough to woohoo. After locking the doors to the others, I finally had enough alone time to charm and crush with the father. 8 a.m. Papa was asleep and Barbara and I bumped uglies. But I didn't think that the children would mind after I had sent them off to school. But before they could exit, they stayed behind to cry and have fits due to Mama getting some from a stranger. But it was just what we needed to relieve the stress. But unfortunately, it still counts as a failure, so we had to start again with a new sim. Back to Riley Harlow's, we're introduced to Ben Dover, the hopeless romantic. And this is where we pick up. Nice. Meet our new sim for the remainder of this challenge. Ben Dover. Of course. Riley was still reflecting upon her previous woohoo partner when I began gossiping with her about urinary accidents. I achieved a want. Her attraction towards me was entirely uncontrollable, as evident from the floating hearts above her head. We then proceeded to make out and embrace each other romantically before I realized her hunger was very low. So we decided to take a break for lunch and kisses. It wasn't until about 3 p.m. that my game had crashed. Excellent. Don't look now, here comes Lila Marshall to steal our newspaper. We'll see more of her a little bit later. I made my way back up to our previous relationship status and we resumed our hokey pokey on the bed. Soon after, Ben had his first woohoo of the challenge. I bought him a Mustang because peak douchiness, and he needed a getaway car. It was then time for Ben to move on to the Jefferson family. Poor Riley would have no idea of his departure. Okay, this is just funny. Look at how mad she is now. 'Cause Paul fucked it all up. Ooh, yeah, let's lock that one. I started in fresh with Barbara, but man, did she hate me. Probably reluctant to give a stranger the time of day after what happened with Paul. Yep, she's going nuts already. But that's okay. I had Sam to gossip with about her. I guess Barbara will always just have a tough time here. I almost made another close call mistake by flirting with Barbara as Sam approached the room. I quickly stopped myself and sat on the couch. After Sam had left the area, I tested the waters with bragging, and she was less than impressed. But it suited his personality. I joined Sam in the hot tub out back in the pouring rain to keep him company. But oh man, was that a mistake. I was struck by lightning during our soak, and it was an event that almost killed me, bringing my motives way down. I opted to feed myself before my demise while Barbara suffered on the living room floor from aspiration deficiency. Sometime later, I got my needs up enough to resume building a relationship with Barbara. We are now friends, but not that kind of friend. Yet. But she seemed to enjoy our lonely toast while eating an old sandwich. Meanwhile, their daughter Gina wasn't doing so well academically. While I was back flirting with Sam and failing, the children were taken by the social worker due to neglect and failing grades. The parents grieved while I was enjoying the sports channel. The three of us hung out together in the kitchen discussing marriage, which Ben was very opposed to. Morning arrived. Gina and Barbara were out of the house, which gave me the perfect opportunity to woohoo with Sam. So I took advantage of the situation. Nightfall the next day, I finally had the same opportunity with Barbara whilst the others slept. I then found my own place and made my exit. And I never looked back. Up next is the Broke family, but I wasn't as familiar with this one, so I forgot to change Bo back to a teen. Again, see Season 1, Episode 4 for that fiasco. It was Wednesday morning. I had already infected the others with the flu. I sent Bo to school so I could have some private— Oh no, they're all broken. Why have I done this? Meanwhile, Brandy and I ate a cereal breakfast when I failed at some at-the-table flirting. But as always, the toast seems to be successful, even over some frosted flakes in the morning. Flirting became easier as Brandy was pretty friendly and easygoing. Bo was asleep, a school night, while his mother and I started crushing hard on each other. The next morning, Bo was still out for a while, so Brandy and I got busy whilst children visitors passed by outside. Then it was on to the next family. I think they can take care of themselves without me. So far so good. We're on to the Dreamer household next. I immediately started gossiping about previous households I had already been at. The disrespect. As the school bus picked up Dirk for school, I had Darren in tears from laughter. This was going great already. More disrespectful gossip of others eventually led to friendship with Darren. And then kisseth with Darren led to crushes between the two of us. I found out Darren's semi-odd turn-ons and decided to dress down to seduce him further. We basically made out on the bed all day, waiting to build our relationship up enough to woohoo. But we weren't quite there yet, and plus Dirk was home anyway. Later that night, our energy was quickly depleting, except Dirk's, so I had him jump rope until he was tired enough to go to sleep, so Darren and I could get down to it. Finally, it was time, a moment of peace between us two. And then, we did it. I got on the computer to find my own place, and I left. Up next is Lothario, another easy one. But, something's wrong here. Look at the way he looks at him. A complete stranger. This is not okay, Ben.
A child.
I corrected the age issue quickly so I could dance with Don, but he wasn't having it. I tried gossiping with him like I usually do, but he wasn't much for that either. This dude really seemed to hate me. But that was Tuesday afternoon. It wasn't until after midnight that we started accepting massages from each other. It quickly escalated into the hot tub for some late-night soaking fun. I think out of this whole challenge, this was the fastest woohoo I had achieved, but there was definitely something wrong here, some kind of glitch. So enjoy this footage of a contactless hot tub woohoo. Okay, now that that's over, let's move on. Following Lothario is the Marshall family. This is going to be a lot more challenging with the increased number of Sims in this family. It was 8 a.m, Monday. I hunted down Ralph, the father, for a gossip session. And then I did the same with his wife, Margaret. Her and I had poor chemistry, but that didn't stop us from becoming friends. It seemed Ralph enjoyed a little bit of the bragging, and of course, who could resist the charm of Ben Dover? I decided to give their daughter, Lila, a part-time job in the science career track for privacy. Privacy? Ben knew no such thing. Oh wait, get back over there. Yeah, you like that. I then locked the doors to the master bedroom so I could spend some alone time with Margaret while Ralph bathed. The next morning, everyone was at work except the toddlers, Margaret and I. So I then decided to get frisky in the middle of the house. 2 crushes. This is going well. Until, of course, the babies interrupted us. I chose to work out to keep my figure up while Margaret took care of the children. And then, this happened in the bathroom. While the others were all asleep, stop. I was napping in the living room recliner this whole time. No, I don't know what you're talking about. It was finally the end of the week, and soon everyone would be out of the house except Margaret and I again. After some kitchen cleaning and some pancake eating, Margaret and I made our way to the bedroom. But before we could woohoo, I took a quick look at her wants, and it seems that she did want to have another baby. So... Ben baby. After our private activity, it was confirmed by the infamous baby jingle that she was indeed pregnant with the Ben baby. Oh, relax, it's just a game. But now it was time to work on Ralph, so I got Margaret a job in the entertainment career track. I took Ralph out in my Mustang to a community lot for a private day out, away from the family anyway, to woohoo. But then my game crashed, and this kept happening every time we went out, so I decided to stop doing that. But the good news is that it wasn't long until I had Ralph in the sack, and the woohoo challenge for the Marshall family was then over. I exited the house into the yellow cab and went off to visit the Brooklyn family. What a mess. I attempted a simple chat to start, but then my game crashed. At 12:53 p.m. I booted back in, but then my game crashed. At 12:56 p.m. I decided to substitute Autumnus in for Brooklyn, but apparently there was a baby on the way, so we had to make some modifications. Long story short, I sent their son off to college to make room for me. There we go, much better. It appears that in this house I had my own separate little quarters where I could stay and recharge away from the others. And of course, lock my doors during those woohoo hours of the day. Okay, before we begin with the Autumnus family, honestly, I hated this household. Like, usually I'd make some sort of joke about how Riley managed to find me after a bunch of families later and how she's mad that I left, but nah, this family is such a pain. Many things fell apart and many things went wrong. It's just hard when you're surrounded by so many others and trying to keep a private life inside that house. It's just Don't even get me started on the granny. And the kids certainly took a bundle of time away from everything. Even this image is weird. A pregnant mama dancing intimately with a stranger that just moved into their house while their baby dances on the floor next to them. After a while, all that dancing wore me out, so I stopped for a while to joke with Dora in the bathroom. I tried to charm her too, but she... You know what? F*** you, Granny. Meanwhile, at my house, looks like I won't be becoming the next master chef anytime soon. Oh, what would Chef Ramsay say? After the smell of singed arm hair had faded, I dove back into flirting while the rest of the family slept. I got a few kisses in until everyone started waking up and ruining my fun. I had to go to another room to act like I was never doing anything wrong. Then the twins came. Twins! As if there weren't enough of y'all already. At least their names were thoughtful, right? Yes, what a wonderful bonding experience. The next part of the video was spent taking care of the babies and finally getting Tommy, the toddler, to grow up into a child. One less obstacle to get through. And this is about the point where everything started to fall apart. Because of the twins, I had to shift some things around so everyone had a place to sleep. The two kids would now sleep in the same room together. And here are the twins being ignored on the kitchen floor. Blood ran down the walls as his eyes became engorged with malice as he crossed over the... wait. No, that's not the right script. Yep. Hang on. I know it's here somewhere. Ah, yes, here it is. Sims 2. I made out with Samantha while the babies continued to cry and her husband was in the next room, bathing. Our relationship wasn't quite woohoo worthy yet, but it was pretty high. In hindsight, I don't even know why I bothered with Dora, but I tried giving her a back rub in the bathroom. Of course, she refused. What even is this? Child, go away, we're doing stuff. Saturday morning, the flu had spread throughout the whole household and everyone had it. Even Ben. Actually, Papa was the only one without the flu, but he had other problems. To prevent the family's expiration due to lack of nourishment, I restocked the fridge with plentiful yum-yums. Samantha had decided to take a nap and miss her daughter Charla's birthday. How selfish. But keep in mind, The Sims is a life simulator. What I'm trying to say is Dora died before she could see Ben's wiener. I'm not going to constitute this as a failure because there wasn't a rule on death, but at least she can have this tree. Yeah, right there. Early Sunday morning, Samantha and Charla were all fast asleep. I figured it was the perfect time to woohoo with Peter, until one of the babies entered a nearby bedroom and woke Samantha, and consequently Charla as well. I made a few more adjustments to the bedrooms regarding the kids because it was now time to seduce Samantha. Charla was putting the babies down for a nap and I was having Tommy jump rope so he would then be tired enough to rest as well. Now that everyone was unconscious, time to get busy. Meanwhile, Thing 1 was starving, but I was on a mission. What I didn't realize is that Charla had made her way to the kitchen for a snack. So I double-checked her memories and nothing reflected upon the woohooing going on upstairs. Nothing in her tasks either. So before the kids could starve, I got out. But they had a lot more other problems headed their way. Go, go, go! On to the Roberts family. Starting out, it seems that I had passed along the flu to them as well. I made Grandma's comfort soup to help make everyone feel healthy again, and then my game crashed. At 12:23 p.m. I jumped back in after using Hood Checker, but once again, also at 12:23 p.m. This time I watched the clock carefully and used a set hour cheat to avoid noon altogether. I skipped straight to 1 p.m. But, yeah. Okay, I had to skip over both 11 and 12 o'clock, but it's been working okay. Look, they're playing catch. Little did they know this was the most fun they would ever have. I cut out a lot, but I built a little room up here for Ben. That's when I realized their daughter had not yet come back from school. Due to the set hour cheat, I had skipped over 1 o'clock, and therefore the game never triggered the bus drop-off, and she was not having a good time. Funnily enough, the bus came by the next morning to pick her up for school, but she was already there. I spent the day with James in the house while his wife was outside splashing in puddles. The next morning, I had an in-house date with Patricia until the crushing begun. We tickled each other until we achieved the dream date. Her Yelp review of the Ben train was very positive. That's about the time that I noticed my own age. Using aspiration points, I used the elixir of light to restore my youth and attractiveness to others. Later that night, I spent more alone time with James, and you know what that means. And don't worry, I checked everyone was asleep. I then polished off the last of the elixir so it didn't go to waste. Do you think this process hurts? I then swapped James out for Patricia for a naughty good time, but the family's energy had already been restored, and I only had a few hours left until sunrise. I had to be quick if I wanted to continue undetected. There weren't any newspapers around, so I bought a computer to find my own place, even though I would soon be living with the infamous Pleasant family next. Meet the Pleasant family, a mother, father, and 2 twin daughters, pretty much opposites from each other. I was talking to the father when a fight broke out between the 2 sisters inside the house. Then I sent them off to school so they didn't have to witness any of the following hokey pokey. In fact, I sent Mary Sue off to work as well, so I could focus on Papa. It wasn't until she left that I brought on the charm and we were able to have our first kiss. Keeping the style of the home, I built an octagonal room alongside of it, where I could stay comfortably with my sleazy leopard sheets. So I don't play these pre-made families very often, but apparently Daniel was having an affair with their maid and got caught when she showed up. But it's not a fail, because I didn't get caught. He did. Later on, I started making more progress with Mary Sue. I even buttered her up with a pretty red rose using the smooth talk interaction I gained with lifetime aspiration points. Eventually, that led us to being on a date, where I achieved some wants. And then that led into... Wait, let's make sure everyone's asleep. Okay, yeah, and then into woohooing. And she seemed pretty happy about the results of the date. So much so that she left a bouquet of flowers by my door. But I couldn't risk getting caught, so I added it into my inventory with the other one. Meanwhile, Daniel and I were getting pretty caught up with each other, getting ready for, well, you guessed it. Now that job was finished, I had to erase all the evidence of me ever being here. Now, ladies and gentlemen, for the big finale. Ben will be joining the Goth family, yes, as in Bella Goth, but this time he won't be alone. I thought I'd spice things up a bit and add Sleazeball Paul to the mix too. So here are the new rules. They're mostly the same, except not only does Ben have to woohoo with all the adult Sims without getting caught, so does Paul. This includes each other as woohoo-ees. This should be fun. Alright, here we are with the mailbox, our unsuccessful cheater Sleazeball Paul, and of course our fuckboy Ben Dover. Since there were 2 of us now invading their household, I figured it'd be a good idea to get to know each other before making moves on anyone else in the family. That way, we would be working together and not against each other. Well, not really. The first day went by with little interaction with the others. Since I had already worked towards Paul and Ben becoming friends, it was time for Ben, our main cheater, to seduce Cassandra. She was quite receptive to the charm and the smooth talking, seeing as though she accepted my red rose. I continued charming sweet, shy Cassandra until we made our way into the next room for some kissing. We were quickly interrupted by Mortimer headed down the stairs, so I improvised. I distracted Mortimer with Paul and a burger, while I was in the backyard flirting with Cassandra at the table. The next morning, everyone was to be at work except Mortimer and Paul, so I got Paul a job in the military to whip him into shape and to occupy his time. Then I sent him off to work. This created enough privacy for Mortimer and Ben during the day, but Ben wasn't doing so well with the flirting, so I smooth-talked him into thinking otherwise. While I was at it, I busted a couple of moves on him, which he also seemed to enjoy. It wasn't long until we were falling for each other. Then some making out to solidify the relationship. But Paul was now home from work. Paul and Ben slept in their makeshift bedroom upstairs for the remainder of the day. It wasn't until nightfall that Tuesday that the ghosts in the backyard started to haunt, the first appearance from Cornelia Goth. Someone Ben was not expecting to see during his fooling around in Pleasantview, I'm sure. It was time for Paul to dip his feet in the waters of cheating, and nobody was safe. Not even Ben. But it wasn't a contest. It was more of a team effort, persuading the family during seclusion to work towards one specific goal. Wednesday at 3, interrupted again. We sat down for a family meal when Alexander grew into a teenager. He would now be self-sufficient, and less of an obstacle during the challenge. Love grew between Cassandra and Ben up until the point of woohooing in the hot tub. I sent Ben off to sleep while I attempted to make some progress with Paul and Cassandra, but he wasn't as lucky, for the school bus had halted us yet again. The rest of the house was asleep when Ben and Mortimer finally had their woohoo upstairs. And as for Ben and Paul, wait a minute. Had to make sure that Cassandra was asleep. Then quite possibly the most anticipated woohoo of the challenge. Now that Ben had officially smashed the family, it was time to finish things out with Paul, Mortimer being his second victim. And since everyone was away, it was the perfect time to make our way over to the love tub for a polite conversation. Sex. They had sex. 2 a.m. that following week, Paul was getting fresh with Cassandra at the table when she began to fall in love. Mortimer! At this point, the challenge was over, but I either didn't record or just plain forgot about Paul and Cassandra's woohoo, but this was close enough to a win, so I'm satisfied. But there was one last thing I had to do before Ben and Paul said goodbye. I invited over the Roberts family from earlier to create a sort of explosion of anger and guilt. Ben and James made out in the living room in front of his daughter and son, who really didn't approve, I guess. That's when I called Paul out to join the room. This is where it all falls apart. Not only did Cassandra act negatively towards the kissing, but Paul's heart was also broken to have learned this unfortunate information. Poor guy. And the chaos didn't stop there. Patricia was headed down the stairs when I decided to fulfill one of Ben's wants in front of both families. But in order for Ben and James to get engaged, Patricia and James would have to break up. And of course, Ben had to be slapped. I then continued the heartbreak with ending the married couple's relationship. It was the only way. The really sad part is that Ben didn't seem to care at all. What a jerk. But of course, it wasn't all bad. Sometimes the ends justify the means. James accepted Ben's proposal as he placed the ring on his finger.
No way!
And they celebrated by making out in front of both families, again. Soon thereafter, Ben and James decided to get married, right then and there. But I don't understand why Ben had a bad memory of this. Like, he literally just said he wanted this. To top everything off, James, Paul, and Ben would go on to live together as one family. The three of them piled into the taxi, and they lived crappily ever after. And that's it. Thanks so much for watching and supporting me as a creator. I also appreciate your guys' patience while I was working on this video, as it took a little longer than I had expected. The next video will be something very special for all my subscribers. I see we're almost at 2,000, so stay tuned for that. That may take some time to complete, but I'll always return for more. So shout out to everything that I love, and that includes you. On next week's show, I'll explain why replacing your security cameras with cantaloupes is a bad idea and how it can cost you thousands in repairs. Until then, take it easy.